as all of you know, in the P6, in the PSLE, all topics from P3 to P6 are tested. Okay, meaning primary 3 topics like magnets, P4 topics like heat and light, and system, digestive systems, all this will be tested at PSLE. And P5, we have topic of water, electricity, and so on. But of course, the questions at PSLE, even though the topic could be a P3 topics, but the questions are at higher level. Okay, it is much more much more difficult as compared to when you're in P3 or P4. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start very shortly. Okay, good evening, everyone. So if parents, if you are around, if you are listening with your child, good evening, parents and students. Okay, thank you for attending this webinar. Okay, so this session is roughly about 45 minutes to 50 minutes. I will leave the last 10 minutes or so for Q&A. All right, so as I'm discussing each question, I would encourage that everybody listen very carefully, and if you have any questions, please write down on a piece of paper, and try not to interrupt me, because I have quite a number of questions to cover today, and just write on a piece of paper, and then I will leave the Q&A to the very last 10 to 15 minutes. Would that be okay? All right, and I would like everybody to focus also, because if you keep on chatting, you are not only distracting yourself, but you are distracting other students as well. Okay, so and I'm going to monitor that. If any of you are chatting unnecessarily, not related to the topic, unfortunately, I may have to bar you from this webinar session, or perhaps in the future session as well. Okay, so I seek your cooperation of everyone, okay, to when the lesson is going on, listen very carefully. If you have any questions, okay, just write it down on a piece of paper, okay, and then in the last 10, 15 minutes, you can ask me through the chat function, and we will discuss the questions together. Will that be okay? All right, okay, now we have 24 attendees. Okay, I'm expecting 60, okay, but no problem, we'll start. And anyway, I'm recording this session also. So for our friends or students who are not able to attend today's webinar, so it's not a problem, because we are recording this, and I will post it and I will provide the link to your parents within 1 to 2 days. Okay. Now, before I start, and any questions? Any questions? No. Okay. Now, let's start with the first question. All right, first question. Now, this is on the topic of matter. Now, this is a past PSLE question. All right, I will give you about 1 minute to read the questions. Okay, so this is the topic of matter, and matter is not at primary 3, okay, but this is a past PSLE question, actual PSLE question. Okay, Alex conducted an experiment using the setup as shown. Okay, so you have a container and you have 150 cubic centimeter of water. Okay, and you have air, right? And they tell you that he used the tap to remove 20 cubic centimeter of water. He then used the pump to add 15 cubic centimeter of air into the container. So first question, what was the final volume of air in the container? And secondly, what properties of water and air did you use to obtain your answer in part A? Okay, so there are 2 parts to the question. Now, when you see such question, always start with recalling the key concepts. What are the concepts they are trying to test you in this question? Okay, so let's take a look at the key concept. Firstly, you must recall that what is the definition of matter? Okay, so matter is anything that has mass and occupies space, right? We learned this in primary 3. And there are 3 states of matter. We have solid, liquid, and gas. Okay, and in this particular question, there are air and water. So air is gas. So let's recall the property of gas. Okay, air or gas has no definite shape and volume, and it can be compressed. The property of water, it has no definite shape, but it has a definite volume and it cannot be compressed. Okay, so first of all, you always start with recalling the concepts of water and gas. Okay, now let's take a look at the first question. Okay, so they ask you, what is the final volume of air in the container? Now, did all of you get 70 cubic centimeter? Did all of you get 70 cubic centimeter? Yeah, especially the P5 students. Do you know why the answer is 70 cubic centimeter? Okay, I can see some no in the chat. All right, so let me explain. So this is a little bit tricky question. So each time when I give this question to my students, more than half of the students will get the answer wrong at the beginning. Okay, so for those of you in P6, you could have seen this question before. All right, okay, so it's not so straightforward. So let's go through the reason why the answer is 70 cubic centimeter. All right, so first they tell you that now in the container, the maximum capacity of the container is 200 cubic centimeter, right? Maximum, because you have 150 cubic centimeter of air, of water, and 50 cubic centimeter of air, right? So maximum is 200 cubic centimeter. So when you remove 20 cubic centimeter of water, right? So now water is 130 left. Okay, 150 minus 20, you have 130 cubic centimeter of water. Now, what happened to the air? Now, air initially was only 50 cubic centimeter, right? So now, suddenly, due to the removal of the water, suddenly, right, the volume of air increases, okay, from 50 to 70 cubic centimeter. Why is this so? Because, remember, air can be compressed, right? And oppositely, air can be uncompressed, right? So when you remove the water, so there is space for the air to occupy the space which was previously occupied by the water, right? So now the volume of air increases from 50 to 70 cubic centimeter. Okay, so that's the first part. Now, what about the second part to the question? They say that he then used the pump to add 15 cubic centimeter of air into the container. So some of my students will write 70 plus 15 and you get 85 as the answer. Now, this is not true. Why? Because if you get 85 as the answer, 85 plus 130, it is already more than 200 cubic centimeter of the container, right? It's more than the volume of the container, which is not possible. So what happened? When you pump 15 cubic centimeter of air, air in the container is compressed, right? So when air is compressed, the volume remains the same. You pump 15 cubic centimeter of air, or you pump 30 or 40, as long as the air can be compressed, it will remain at 70 cubic centimeter. Okay, class? Understand? No problem? Okay. No worries. If you don't understand, just write on a piece of the paper that I told you to get. Okay, later at the end, you can ask me again. Okay, and later on when we record, when I upload onto YouTube and then you can review my answers again and again. Okay, so that's the best part about online learning. Now, what about the second part of the question? Okay, second part, they ask you, which properties of water and air do you use to obtain your answer in A? What property of water and air? Very simple. Once you're able to recall the definition of the properties of liquid and the properties of air, you should be able to answer this question very easily. Okay, so here we know that water has a definite volume, but air has no definite volume and can be compressed. That's why air, when it is at 50 cubic centimeter, okay, it will increase to 70 when there was space for the air to occupy the container, right? So, and even though when 15 cubic centimeter of air was pumped inside, the air remains at 70 cubic centimeter. Why? Because air can be compressed, right? But water cannot, right? Water, unlike air, water has a definite volume. So it cannot be compressed. Okay? Right, so quite easy, yeah, the second part. All right, let's move on to the next question. Okay, can all of you see this question? Can all of you see? Okay, I give you 1 minute to read through this question. Huh? Okay, so this is on the topic of light and shadow. Okay, part A. Okay, let me read for you the question. Huh? This graph below shows how the length. Okay, let me increase the size for you. Huh? Some of you cannot see. Okay, is it better now? Okay. All right, so the graph shows the length of Daisy's shadow changes over a period of time as she walked in a straight line near a street lamp at night. Okay, so this is how the graph goes, right? Now remember, when you see a graph, first of all, you must identify the axis, right? The vertical axis as well as the horizontal axis. Now here, the horizontal axis states the time, right? And you can see increasing time, 1 second, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds. And the vertical axis, okay, stands for the length of the shadow. Okay, so you can see very clearly from this graph that it is a U-shaped graph. Okay, as time increases, at first, the length of the shadow decreases. All right, the length of the shadow decreases at first. And then, after that, from 4 seconds onwards, the length of the shadow increases. Okay, all right, so part A. Now let's take a look at part A. Yeah? Two properties of light cause shadows to be formed. One of these property is light travel in straight lines. State the other property. And anyone can tell me? Anyone? What is the other property of light that is relevant to this question? Anyone? Light can be blocked. Okay, Dave, very good. Okay, light travels in a straight line is already stated in the question, so you cannot repeat whatever is stated in the question. They ask you state the other property of light. Light can be blocked. Okay, very good. Okay, let's take a look. Huh? Okay, so first, let's recall the key concepts, right? So again, when you see any questions, right, any PSLE question, science question, always think about what topic they're trying to test you and recall what are the key concepts, right? So firstly, light travel in a straight line. Secondly, shadow is formed when light is blocked. Okay, you can add on also when light is blocked by an opaque object or a translucent object. Okay, because if light is blocked by a transparent object, no shadow will be formed. Okay, so but I state this in general that shadow is formed when light is blocked. Now, question number 1. All right, so the question asks, state the other property of light. Okay, so here very clear the answer is a shadow is formed when light is blocked. Okay, very good. I can see that many of you got the correct answer. Well done. Okay, let's take a look at part B. Okay, anybody can share your answer. Part B, is Daisy walking towards or away from the lamp during period Y shown in the graph? Okay, Ikram say away, Tristan say away, Ani away. Okay, very good. Now, can you share with us what is the reason for your answer? The P5 students, I think those who are giving the answers are all the P6 students, right? Okay, so to get the answer, okay, to get the answer correctly, we must able to analyze the question, analyze the graph. Okay, so you can see that in period Y, the length of the shadow increases, right? Okay, the length of the shadow increases as time increases. Okay, so what happened now? Let's draw the, let's say this is the lamp. Let's say this is a lamp and this is the person walking. This is the person. Okay, so this is Daisy. So this is the lamp. Right? Now, when Daisy is right under the lamp, how long is the shadow? I think all of you have experienced this, right? When you stand under the sun at noon, right? The shadow is very, very small. Correct or not? Okay. But when does our shadow increase in size? Our shadow increase in size when the sun is setting, right? So likewise for this particular case, when Daisy is walking away, right, away from the lamp, right, the size of the shadow become longer and longer. So this coincides with the graph here, right? The graph here states that from period 4, 5, and 6, the length of the shadow increases. Okay? Okay, so we can see the answer very clearly. The answer is she's walking away from the lamp. Why? As time increases, the length of the shadow increases. Okay? All right, everybody? All okay? Okay, so the tricky part here is part 3, part C. Okay, part C. Let's take a look at part C. Okay, can all of you see the question? This is the challenging part. From the graph, Ken concluded that Daisy was walking at a slower speed during period X compared to period Y. Explain how did Ken come to this conclusion? So this is very interesting. Why? Because this graph tells you about the length of the shadow and time. However, the question, they are connecting the issue of speed, meaning how fast or how slow Daisy was walking. So how can you tell the speed of the person by looking at the shadow? Can we? Yes, obviously, right? So if you look at the shadow, right, when a person is running, right, the shadow will change more rapidly. Correct? Not? The shadow will change more rapidly when the person is running or it is moving faster. Okay, so what happened here? Okay, what happened here? Okay, let's take a look at question. Okay, so I want you to take a look at period X. Okay, now period X, I've drawn for you two lines, two red color lines, this line and this line, right? And for period Y, I've drawn for you the green color line, this line and this line, right? So red color line, it shows the changes of the length of the shadow in 2 seconds, right? In 2 seconds from period 1 to period 3, so from first second to the third second. So you notice that this is the change in the length of the shadow. Okay. However, in period Y, from the 4th second to the 6th second, same time period, you notice, right? The change in the length of shadow is bigger, right? Almost twice, perhaps more than twice. So if we know that the length of the shadow changes faster for the same time period, right? So we know that Daisy was walking faster in period Y as compared to period X, or walking slower in period X compared to period Y. Okay, so how should we answer? For the same time period of 2 seconds. Now, how do I get 2 seconds? You notice here, this is 2 seconds. From 1 second to 3 seconds, 2 seconds. Likewise, here is also from 4 to 6, also 2 seconds. Okay, so for the same period of 2 seconds, the change in the length of shadow in X is lesser than in Y. Okay, so we know that when the change is lesser in period X, so it means that Daisy was walking at a slower speed. Okay. All right. So far, all of you got it? I know some of you are a bit confused, but no problem. Okay. So the key here, you can see from the graph, you must be able to analyze the graph quite carefully. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Ready? Okay. Let me enlarge this a little bit. Can all of you see? Okay, this is on the topic of heat. Heat is taught at primary 4, right? Okay. So here, Ayong conducted an experiment using two identical flasks as shown below. Flask C was covered with feathers, while flask D was not. Both flasks were filled with 200 cubic centimeter of water at 25 degrees Celsius. Ayong placed both flasks into a tank of hot water at 90 degrees Celsius. He recorded the temperature of water in both tanks at different times. The results are shown below. Okay, so this is an experiment and they show you the results in the way of a graph. Okay, so you can see this is flask D, right? Flask D is here, and this is flask C. Okay, now when you see an experiment, first of all, you need to identify what is the change variable. Anyone can tell me what is the change variable in this question? What is the change variable in this question? Very good, the presence of feathers, right? So in flask C, there are feathers, but in flask D, it's not covered with feathers. What about the fixed variable? What about the fixed variable? Okay, so you need to specify, Farah, what about the water? The volume of the water, right? Okay, so you need to specify that the volume of the water is the same and the starting temperature is also 25 degrees Celsius, right? So this is the fixed variable, as well as the container. Some of you mentioned about the container, the flask, right? The flask, the size of the flask must be the same. Okay, and right. So basically, those are the important fixed variable. Okay, now let's analyze the graph. Now, what do you observe about the graph? So we can see in flask C, now you can see this, the starting temperature, right? This is 25 degrees Celsius, right? When this two flask is inserted or is put into a tank of hot water of 90 degrees Celsius, the temperature increases, right? Why do the temperature increases for both flasks? Because the water gain heat, right? So inside is only 25 degrees Celsius. So when both flasks is put into a tank of hot water, so both water gain heat and increases. However, if you notice that flask D, the water in flask D, the temperature increases faster, right? It increases more. Now, what is the reason? So they ask you, based on Ayong's result, what can be concluded about feathers? And explain your answer. Okay, let's take a look at the concepts. Okay, so we analyze the concepts first. So we know in P4, we learned that heat travels from region of higher temperature to region of lower temperature. Okay, and what are poor and good conductors of heat? Some materials are good conductor of heat, and some materials are poor conductor. Right? Like feathers, they are poor conductor of heat. And good conductors, metals are good conductor of heat. Okay, so poor conductor of heat means what? It gains heat slower. Okay, so the answer here, what can you conclude about feathers? Feathers are poor conductor of heat. Why? What's the reason? So they ask you to explain, right? So some students, they miss out this explain part. They only say the first part. Feathers are poor conductor of heat. So many students, they miss out, right? Because this question, they ask you to explain, not just state your answer. Okay, so when they say explain, you must be able to explain your answer using scientific concepts. Okay, you must clearly explain your answer using clear scientific concepts. All right, so this is the part where many students, they do not get the full 1 mark. Okay, so here we can explain that the temperature of water in the flask covered with feathers increase lesser than the flask not covered with feathers. So how do we know? By looking at the graph, analyzing the graph. So flask C, right? So this is where the flask which is covered with feathers, the temperature of the water covered with the feathers gains heat lesser, right? Gains lesser heat, and the increase in temperature is lesser than the water in flask D. Okay, so we can conclude that feathers are poor conductors of heat. Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, insulator, Hazira mentioned about insulator. Now, insulator, we use it only in the topic of electricity. Okay, so some items, some materials are insulator of electricity, or they are conductors of electricity. But for heat, we do not say that they are insulators of heat, right? Example, feathers, we do not say that feathers are insulators of heat. Because why? Heat can still transfer, but it's only that it transfer at a slower rate than other materials. Okay, so the word insulator, we use it for electricity rather than on the topic of heat. So heat, we just differentiate material by whether it is a good conductor of heat or poor conductor of heat, or we compare one item with one another. Okay. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Are you ready? Okay, so this is the topic of plant transport system. Okay, those of you in P5, have you all learned about plant transport system? I think most of you have, right? Okay, where you learn about xylem, phloem. Okay, Ryan, you have not? Okay, no problem. We shall help you, recall the topic. Okay, so in P5, this is a P5 topic. So P5 topic on plant transport system. Now, this topic is very simple. Okay, in plant transport system, there are two tubes that you need to know. Only two tubes. Number one, we call it the food carrying tube. Okay, number two, it is the water carrying tube. Okay, so at primary school level, you only need to know these two tubes. So what's the function of the water carrying tube? Now, sometimes some books, they write water carrying tube as xylem, right? But the word xylem itself is not in the syllabus, meaning that you do not have to try very hard to memorize the word xylem itself. Just water carrying tube will be enough. So what's the function of the water carrying tube? It carries water and nutrients from the roots to all parts of the plant, right? Remember, plants take in water and nutrients through the roots, right? So from the roots, how does it get to all parts of the plant? Via the water carrying tube. All right, and remember, it's not only water, it's also they carry nutrients as well. Okay, so the second tube that you need to know, now in some books, they call it the phloem. Okay, again, you don't have to know the word phloem, it can be quite complex, right? All is required that you know, you use the term food carrying tube. So what is the function of the food carrying tube? Very simple. Now, where do the plants make food? They make food in the leaves, right? Very good, in the leaves. So the food in the leaves has to be transported to all parts of the plant, including the flowers, the roots, the stem, the bark, the branches, every part of the plant. So how does it get to all parts of the plant? Via the food carrying tube. Okay, so the function of the food carrying tube is to transport food from the leaves to all parts of the plant. Okay, easy peasy, right? So those of you who have not learned this topic, so this is a very quick crash course for you. So these are the two main concepts that you need to know in this chapter of plant transport system. Okay, now let's take a look at the question. Now this I thought is a very interesting question. This is a past PSLE question. So I give you some time to read this question. Okay, now let's read together. Now Brian conducted an experiment using two similar plants. He removed an outer ring from the stem of one of the plants as shown below. Okay, the food carrying tube was removed while the water carrying tube remained in the stem. Right, so it was cut. The outer part of the stem was removed, and they only removed the food carrying tube. Remember, the water carrying tube is not removed. Now, after some time, the two plants produced fruit as shown below. Now, what do you notice about these two plants, the two fruits? What do you observe? One is bigger than the other, right? Now, strangely, the bigger fruit is the plant where the outer ring was removed. Okay, but the plant where the food carrying tube was intact, the fruit was smaller. This is the strange part. Correct? Can you think of the reason why? Yes, the fruit on the left is bigger. Why? Okay, I want a P5 to answer. P6, some of you may have seen this question because this is a past PSLE question. Okay, anybody from P5 wants to try? P5 student? Quite strange, right? When you cut the food carrying tube, right, we thought that the plant will die immediately, but instead, the fruits becomes bigger. Why is this so? Anybody from P5 wants to try? Okay, Alicia says that the fruit did not get enough food. Okay, if the fruit did not get enough food, then how come the fruit became bigger, right? When you remove the fruit carrying tube, and then the fruits became bigger, right? On the left side here, you notice here, fruits of plant with ring of the stem removed, it became bigger. Water in, food out, the food stayed on top, the smaller plant. Okay, anybody else? The food carrying tube was removed, so the food is accumulated at the top. Very good answer. Rehan, are you P5 or P6? P5, oh, very good. Okay, well done. Okay, so what happened here? You see, when the food carrying tube is removed, right, instead of, now the fruits is, the food is made at the leaves, right? So what happened to the food? The food will be transported via the food carrying tube to all parts of the plant, including the roots, right? Including the roots, the bottom part here. Okay, so when this part here was removed, right? This is removed, the food carrying tube is removed, so there's a traffic jam here. There is a traffic jam, or there's a bottleneck. So the food cannot be sent to the bottom. So what happened when you have a traffic jam? The food will be diverted, correct or not? Diverted where? Diverted to the upper part of the plant, right? It will be diverted up here, diverted up here, diverted up here, right? So where are the fruits? The fruits are all located here, right? So what happened? The fruits will receive more and more food, right? Instead of the food going down to the roots and to the bottom part of the plant, it goes to the upper part only. It is accumulated at the upper part. That's why the fruit here becomes bigger. Okay? But however, will this plant remain alive for a very long time? Do you think this plant will remain alive for a very long time? No, right? Okay, why? What's the reason? Anybody can tell me the reason? Why, after some time, this plant will die? Initially, yes, the fruit will be bigger, right? You have bigger fruit. Very good. Mariam said that the roots cannot get food, right? Remember, all parts of the plant will need food to survive. Okay, so when the roots or the bottom part of the plant did not receive any food, they will eventually die, right? So when the roots die, will the plant be able to absorb water through the roots? Will the plant be able to absorb nutrients through the roots? Cannot, right? So eventually, when water is run out, the entire plants will die. Okay, so let's take a look at the answer here. Okay, so first part here, suggest why why bigger fruits are produced. Now, since the food carrying tube were removed, food made by the leaves could not be transported to the part of the plant below the cut stem. Okay, hence more food was transported to the fruits as compared to the plants with the food carrying tube intact. So this causes the fruit of the plant with outer ring of the stem removed to produce bigger fruits compared to those with uncut stem. Okay, so this is a 2-mark question, and this is the answer. Okay, everyone? Now, what about part B? Part B, they tell you that after some time, the plant with the cut stem died. Give a reason why removing the outer ring of the stem caused the plant to die. Right, like what we have discussed just now. Okay, so food that was made in the leaves could not be transported from the leaves to the roots of the plant or to the bottom part of the plant. Hence, the root will not be able to absorb water and mineral salts for the plant, thus causing the plant to eventually die. Okay, so when the plant dies, that's it. No fruits, nothing. Okay, so this is not something which is sustainable. Only in a very short while, the fruits gets bigger, but eventually the entire plant will die. All right. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. Magnets. I think some of you may have seen this question. Now, this is a past PSLE question on the topic of magnets. Now, magnets is taught at primary 3 or primary 4, right? Primary 3 or primary 4. Okay. So I give you 30 seconds to read. Now, Cheng Yi observed that magnet M and object Y were attracted as shown below. So you can see here magnet M and object Y, and the keyword here is attracted. Give a reason why Cheng Yi cannot conclude whether object Y is a magnet or not based on the observation. Okay, and part B, they ask you, using only magnets M and object Y, what should Cheng Yi do to conclude whether object Y is a magnet or not? Explain your answer. Okay, so this is a past PSLE question. It's a 2-mark question. Okay, so as usual, we are going to analyze the concept first. Let's recall what are the key concepts in this question. Okay, so those of you who have learned, remembered the topic of magnets, we know that magnets can attract magnetic material. Okay, example of magnetic material. Can anybody tell me example of magnetic material? Steel. Okay, iron. All right, very good. Nickel, cobalt. Okay, so we know that the most common ones are steel and iron. So these are magnetic material. Is gold a magnetic material? Is silver a magnetic material? No, right? So many students are confused between whether the material is magnetic or whether it conducts electricity. Gold is a very good conductor of electricity, but it is non-magnetic. Likewise, copper is a metal, it's a good conductor of heat, but it is not magnetic material. So you need to be very careful about that. So another thing is that magnet has 2 types of force. 2 types of forces, magnetic force of attraction and magnetic force of repulsion. Okay? So magnet has 2 types of forces, magnetic force of attraction and magnetic force of repulsion. And like poles will repel, unlike poles will attract. Unlike poles means what? You have a north pole and a south pole, it will attract. But if you have both north pole or both south pole, we call them like poles, it will repel. Okay, so these are the key concepts. Okay, are very correct? Some metals are not magnetic. Coins, cobalt, yes, very good. Coins, yes, exactly. Now let's answer the question. Part A, give a reason why Cheng Yi cannot conclude whether object Y is a magnet or not based on the observation. Right, remember, it cannot conclude yet because why? If magnet M can attract object Y, 2 possible conclusions. Right, conclusion number 1, it could be object Y is a magnet. However, object Y can also be a magnetic material. Example of magnetic material, like what you have mentioned just now, right? Steel, iron, right? They are not a magnet, but their magnetic materials can also be attracted by magnets. So just by observing that the object attracts to magnet M, she cannot conclude yet. Okay, now what about part B? Now part B says, using only magnet M and object Y, what should Cheng Yi do to conclude whether object Y is a magnet or not? What can she do? Anyone? Okay, Ikram says Cheng Yi should make D face B to see if it attracts or repel, or she could make A face C. Okay, yes, 2 possible answers. 2 possible answers. She can flip either object Y or flip magnet M. Okay, let's take a look at the first option. If you flip object Y, meaning that you place the pole, the part D of object Y to part B of magnet M. Okay, so you can place end of D of object Y close to pole B of magnet M. If object Y is repel, yes, confirm chop that object Y is a magnet. Otherwise, if it still attracts, right? So we cannot say that object Y is a magnet, right? We can only say that it's a magnetic material. Okay, so that's one possible answer. Another possible answer is you flip magnet M. So when you flip magnet M, you place the pole A to C. Okay, A to C, and you observe. Okay, if it is repelled, right? So we can conclude that object Y is a magnet, but if it continues to attract, we conclude that object Y is only a magnetic material. Easy peasy, right? Okay. Okay, It is, what time is it now? Now it's 6:45. Huh? Okay, so now I open to any one of you to ask any questions. Okay, first priority is related to the topics that we have discussed. Okay, and then after that, if you have any other question related to P3 to P5 science topics, okay, you can ask. All right, and then I'll try to discuss as much as we can in this session. Okay. So I hope you all have benefited some. I know this is a very short session, but we are going to have more and more of such sessions. Okay, later on at 8 o'clock, I'm going to have another session, especially only for the P6 students. So P5 students, you cannot attend. Why? Because I'm going to discuss only the P6 topics. Okay, P6 topics like energy, forces, adaptations, photosynthesis. Okay, if you attend, then you'll be quite lost. All right, so it is meant for the P6 students who are preparing for the PSLE. Okay. Okay, let's see. Why sponge can be compressed? Okay, let me ask you. Is sponge a solid, liquid, or gas? Anyone can tell me? Is sponge a solid, liquid, or gas? It's a solid, right? So if it's a solid, let's recall back. Can solid be compressed? No, right? So we cannot say that a sponge can be compressed, right? Because if we say the sponge can be compressed, we agree that sponge is air, which is not possible, right? Doesn't make sense. Okay. Now, then how come sponge can be squeezed into a container, right? Because sponge has many tiny holes which contains air, or we call them air spaces. So these air spaces, when we squeeze sponge, right, these air spaces, the air inside these air spaces will escape or compress. The air, not the sponge. The air in the sponge will escape or be compressed, and that is why you are able to squeeze sponge, or we can squeeze sponge into a smaller container. Okay, very good question. Okay, anybody has any other question? How often do plant make starch? Starch is when plant make excess sugar. And how often do they have starch? Okay, so after some time, now this is on the topic of photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is a P6 topic. Okay, so in the process of photosynthesis, what happens is that plants make food in the presence of carbon dioxide, presence of water, and the presence of light. And what gas is produced? Oxygen gas and food, right? Now this food, the raw form is sugar, but then after that it is converted to starch. After some time it's converted to starch. Okay, so that part is beyond your syllabus. You don't need to know. Okay, so what you need to know is that in the process of photosynthesis, okay, you need you need carbon dioxide gas, you need light, and you need water, and food is produced in the form of sugar as well as oxygen gas. Okay, so that part you need to know. Okay, is slime a solid, liquid, or gas? Why? Okay, we can say slime is a solid. Another example, some student may think that, teacher, what about salt and pepper? Right, because salt and pepper, they take up the shape of the container. Right, but we cannot say salt and pepper as liquid, right? Salt and pepper, they are solid because they are very tiny crystals. So likewise, slime, I would say that slime is a solid. Okay, why? Because when we try to put slime into a container, even though it will take up the shape of a container, we must force them to take up the shape of the container. It doesn't go naturally. Just like plasticine, right? Plasticine, you need to force them. We need to use force, effort to make them occupy the shape of the container, right? But it doesn't flow by itself. Unlike water, we just need to pour. Then automatically it will occupy the shape of the container. Okay, Alicia asks, Mr. Yang, there's a PSLE question with banana growing upwards. They say that they are chlorophyll. Very good question. This is last year PSLE question, right? Quite an interesting question. Last year, they say that the banana grows upwards. And it was stated in the question that the banana contains chlorophyll. Now, this is something very strange, right? Remember, in your syllabus, whatever that you have learned in P6 syllabus is very, very limited. Okay, the real life out there is very complex. Okay, it's not so straightforward. Right? There's a lot of things that we need to learn. There are always exceptions. We know that on the topic of cells, we know that the leaves contains chloroplast, contains this green substance which is used, chloroplast, chlorophyll, to trap the sunlight. Right? This is generally it is in the leaves. So the leaves traps light, and the light is needed for the plant to make food. However, in that year, that particular question, they says that banana contains chlorophyll. Okay, so why not, right? They tell you, right? It's not that something that you need to know before your PSLE, but in the question they tell you that banana contains chlorophyll and it grows upwards. Okay, so they are trying to say that banana fruit contains chlorophyll, and we know from the topic of in P5 topic of cells that the function of chlorophyll is to trap sunlight. Right, so when the chlorophyll traps sunlight, so this banana grow upwards to reach out for the sunlight. Right, so that is one of the very fruits. Banana is one of the few fruits that grows upwards. Most fruit, because of the mass, because of gravity, will grow downwards, right? But banana grows upward. Why? Because they have this special characteristics where the fruit itself contains chlorophyll, and this chlorophyll needs to grow upwards to reach for sunlight. Okay, so this is the kind of question, interesting question that you see in your PSLE. Okay, it's interesting. You have never seen before. However, it's not that it's totally new to you, because you know the function of chlorophyll. In P5, we have learned topic of cell, chloroplast, chlorophyll, and the topic of photosynthesis as well. So you know the function to trap sunlight. Okay, so they want to see how you're able to apply the concept that you have learned to the particular question. Okay. Okay, those of you who have not heard of that, you can take a look at last year PSLE question. So those of you who are taking PSLE question, PSLE this year, so the P6s, so be prepared to be surprised with very strange question. Okay. What do you want to? Okay, Alif asks, why is it possible to pump air into a float even though it is fully inflated? Very good question. Just like I will maybe rephrase this question for tires, right? Tires, even though it is fully inflated, right, you can still pump air. Why? Because let's recall back the topic of matter, right? The property of air. Air can be compressed. Okay, so when we pump, right, even though we pump and pump and pump, it gets more difficult, no doubt, but air can still go in. Why? Because of the property that air can be compressed. Okay? Okay, Farah asks, why banana turn yellow after some time? All right, so that is the nature of fruit itself. All right, fruits usually it's green color. That after some time, rambutan it will turn red. Okay, so there are there are some reasons. One of the reasons it came out in one question where they say that this rambutan or cherry, it is green when it's very young. Why green? Because it camouflages itself. This is under the topic of adaptation, where fruits, they can blend with the surrounding, so to protect themselves from the predator. So the question goes like this. So when it is young, the cherry or the fruit is green in color, right? However, when it is ripe, it is red in color. So this is something very interesting in nature, I thought. Right? Why? Because when the fruit is young, right, it has to protect itself from the predators, from the birds and so on. If not, why? Then the fruits cannot be, if it's too young, it doesn't make sense to be dispersed, right? It will not reproduce anymore. However, when the fruit is ripe, right, it becomes red color. So red color, it is very, very easily spotted by birds and other animals, right? So when it's easily spotted, why red color is easily spotted, right? Because the tree is green in color, right? And the fruit is red in color. So very easily, it is very outstanding. So all the animals and the birds will come, and when they eat the fruits, what happens? The seeds will be dispersed by the animals far, far away. So this helps the plant in seed dispersal, and it helps in its reproduction. Okay, so this I thought is very interesting. So sometimes by nature it changes color. It has a certain function or certain purpose. All right. Okay, Alicia has estimated how many special questions are there going to be in PSLE? Yeah? What do you mean by special? I don't really understand. So the questions are normal, right? It is based on the syllabus. The only thing is that whether you are able to interpret and answer the question, that is something else. Huh? So how you're able to answer well or not, it depends how prepared you are for the PSLE. Okay, some students, some of my P6 students by now, they have not even remembered all the key concepts at their fingertips. I always tell my students that at this point of time, you must know all the concepts, all the topics from P3 to P6 topics. It must be at your fingertips. Okay. Other than that, you must be able to analyze, right? You analyze graph, analyze data, apply the question, the concepts to the question. So that is at another level. So the most basic thing that you need to know is to be able to remember and recall the concepts, and then after that you must be able to apply, right? So the question, if you don't study, if you are not prepared, every question will be very challenging. But if you are prepared, maybe one or two questions are challenging, right? And hopefully you can get some marks from these questions. Okay. Okay, so Alicia, Mr. Young, there's a 2018 question that shows a person holding a wire that has a phone connected to it. The phone did not drop off immediately. Why? Okay, this is on the topic. This is on the topic of friction forces. Okay, why it did not drop off immediately? Because the frictional force between the socket and the phone, the plug of the phone itself, the frictional force is greater than the gravitational force. Okay, so when it is greater, so it will not drop off immediately. But after some time, right, because due to gravity, it will pull off the phone downwards. So because it was able to overcome the frictional force. Okay. Nadia, what was your question? Sorry, there's so many questions here. I may have missed your question. Oh, Nadia asks, sometimes when my mom buys fruit like papaya, to be exact, when I want to eat, my mom will say cannot eat. And it needs 2 days to be cooked. Okay. Now, immediately when you buy fruits, it has a certain life cycle. Okay, it undergoes certain life cycle. It takes time to ripe, just like a human, right? Baby, all of us, right? We grow from young and 1 is old, 2 years old, and so on. Right? Likewise, fruits also it has a certain age. Okay, as time passes by, the fruit gets riper. When it gets riper, that is where the fruit becomes nicer, sweeter, and so on. Because when you just buy, right, the fruit may be not old enough for us to eat. Okay, it is not ripe enough for us to eat. We can eat, but it will not taste nice, right? Because the fruit it needs certain time before it fully ripens. Okay, so that's why you need some time. For most fruits, like papaya, bananas also. Bananas, when you buy, sometimes it's green color, right? But you leave it after a few days, okay, it will become yellow. So that's where it is ripe, and then you can eat it. Okay, any other question? Okay, all right. So it's almost 7 o'clock. Okay, class, thank you very much for today's session. Okay, we are going to have more and more of such sessions, okay? So later on, the P6 student, hopefully those of you who have registered, I see you at 8 o'clock. Okay, we are going to discuss the P6 topics. Okay, and the other students, in end of the month, I'm going to have another session, but it's for maths, maths problem solving. And for the P6s, we are going to have a session on the topic of speed. Okay, speed I know is very challenging to many students. There are certain kind of questions, certain types of questions that you must know. Okay, I've identified about 7 to 8 types of speed question for you. So you need to know all these things. Okay, all right, everyone. See all of you in class. Okay, have a nice day. All right, bye bye.